Oh, he says we are live now. Okay. Well, apparently we're live. So this is going to be our Introduction to Citizen Science workshop. And we're going to try to save as much time as we can to get outside. So I'll be really quick. With us here today, as you can see, we have Julie Fisher and Menzie. Sorry, I don't have your last name written down.
It's Mila Menzie.
Oh, Mila Menzie, sorry, and Julie Fisher. So thank you both for joining us. I'll just give you a quick introduction. Mila was born and raised in Calgary, and she has spent her summers working in parks all across Alberta. She nerds out when talking about Alberta wildlife and ecosystems, and her happy place is on a ridge in the backcountry with a good pair of binoculars. Mila studied environment and sustainability geography at UBC Vancouver. She loves to teach, learn, and share her enthusiasm for energy and natural resources. So we're really happy to have her here today. And along with her is Julie Fisher, who is an education program coordinator at Inside Education. She graduated from the University of Alberta with a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, where she realized that she has a passion for sharing Alberta's agriculture story with non-farming folks. Her work with Inside Education involves developing Inside Education's agriculture education programs, as well as developing and delivering programs on other environmental and natural resource topics, such as energy, climate, forest, and wildlife. Okay, yeah, let's just hop right into it. Thank you, Julia and Mila, for joining us.
Thanks so much, Ben. So like Ben said, my name is Mila and Julie's here as well, my colleague Julie. So you'll hear from her throughout our workshop today too. But we really hope you've been enjoying the Canadian Rockies Youth Summit, and thanks so much for joining us for this little workshop. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about citizen science, and we're going to talk about citizen science with a focus on trees and climate. Then you'll have a chance to go outside, get a screen break, and collect some data, get up close and personal with a tree in your backyard or your community. Come back and share some of the data that you found. Before we dive any deeper into it though, I wanna take a quick moment to acknowledge that the land that we're all on today, no matter where you are tuning in from, across Canada or across Alberta, has been lived on by Indigenous groups for thousands of years. So I'm going to take a second to acknowledge where I am right now, but I'd encourage you to do the same according to wherever you are tuning in from. So I'm in Calgary, what's now Calgary, which is Treaty 7 territory, traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, and Tsuut'ina nations, Stoney Nakoda First Nation, and Métis Region 3. So as we go into the weeds of trees, climate change, and citizen science today, let's keep in mind that this sense of stewardship that we're all trying to share has been embodied by these groups of people for generations. So let's try to keep that in mind and think about that in the context of citizen science today as we learn more about it and get up close and personal with some trees. Okay, so who are we? Why are Julie and I talking to you guys today at all? Well, Julie and I are from an organization called Inside Education. So Inside Ed is an environmental and natural resource charity. So for over 35 years, our organization has been bringing environmental education and natural resource education to classrooms across Alberta. Now, the reason I was really attracted to working for Inside Ed is due to their approach. So we approach environmental education in a very balanced way that incorporates really all of the perspectives. I know that you guys are mostly in high school, and I remember when I started getting interested in environmental issues in high school, it could be such a polarizing topic, and I really struggled with that. Even throughout university, some of these discussions would be really polarizing, and I didn't think that it had to be that way. So I think the best way to approach it, and what Inside Ed's core value really is talking, having open conversations, incorporating economic, environmental, social, all these different perspectives, and keeping it really balanced. So that's kind of our goal. Normally we travel across Alberta and visit classrooms, and right now, just like everybody, we are doing things virtually. But the great thing about that is that it can be easier in some ways to access a whole bunch of different communities across the province. So we know that there's people tuning in today from all over, which is pretty cool. Okay, so today we're going to focus in on trees and climate and ways to participate in citizen science. So I want to get on the same page about what citizen science even is. So this is a nice definition from our friends at the National Geographic Society on citizen science. And there's a couple words in here that I've bolded that really stood out for me. So first of all, public participation. This means using everyday people of all ages, all backgrounds from all communities to collect data. It means collaboration. So efforts between professional scientists and citizens, those everyday citizens. Sharing and contributing. So it's a really efficient way, really, of collecting data and doing research. It can save money and get a much higher volume of data than you would get just from some people at a university who are being paid to get that data. And then finally, citizen science is really fun. So throughout my career, and even before my career, I got to participate in a few different citizen science projects through different organizations. So I did things like butterfly catching and looking for harlequin ducks. There's a whole range of citizen science projects that you can get involved with. But this is just the theory of citizen science. What does it look like in practice? So we're going to look at trees to illustrate. So today we're going to be collecting data from trees. Now, why is data collected from trees at all? So I'm going to tell you about a couple reasons data might be collected from trees, but this is by no means an exhaustive list. So in forestry, foresters will take tree measurements, which is kind of what we're going to be doing today, figuring out the height, volume, and density of trees. That can inform the type, the quantity, and quality or value of products that can be developed from those trees, so the wood and paper products from harvesting those trees. Then also parks agencies. So I've worked for Parks Canada and Alberta Parks in the past. There's lots of data collected from trees to help protect endangered species, for example, like the white bark pine. You'd also study trees to figure out how wildlife uses trees. And even establish wildlife corridors. So there's lots of different reasons parks agencies would study trees. The government in Alberta collects data from trees to help limit the spread of mountain pine beetle, as one example. And then researchers collect data from trees to figure out things like how much carbon trees can sequester and a whole variety of different topics as well. And data from trees can be collected in a whole bunch of different ways too. Forestry will use, and research will use a lot of LiDAR, so light detection and ranging using laser pulses basically. Drones can be used, GPS and GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems, is often used. Today, though, we're going to use some really simple tools that we all have in our homes to collect some tree data. So as we've looked at, trees do a lot for us, and the data can be collected from trees can be used for a whole bunch of different purposes. But today we're going to focus in on two ways that we use trees. So one of them is paper and wood products. And then the other one is carbon sequestration and storage. And so we're going to be measuring trees to figure out both what types of wood and paper products they could turn into, but also how much carbon that tree sequesters or stores. And these kind of two focuses for our workshop today really encompass what we're all about at Inside Ed 2. So talking about industry and environment and figuring out how all these different user groups can work together to balance the needs of the economy and the environment. So before we explain what we're going to go outside and do, we'll just dive into these two tree uses or tree measurement purposes that we're going to be doing. So quick forestry 101 in Alberta. So of course, we all know that trees are harvested for wood and paper products. This map shows the natural regions of Alberta, and I'm putting on top of it a map that shows the forest management areas across Alberta. All of these FMAs that are colored are currently assigned to a different forestry company to manage and harvest. So you notice that most of Alberta has managed forestry areas. And then the gray areas are parks and protected areas, mostly through the Rockies, where there's no harvesting allowed. And you might notice that most of the FMAs are through the boreal forest and the foothills, so central to northern Alberta, and that's just because the trees that grow there are more valuable. So a lot of spruce, pine, and fir are there, and they're the best species for making products in Alberta. And then like southern Alberta, grasslands and parklands don't have as much commercially useful forest. So that's a snapshot of forestry across Alberta, and we all know that we use these wood and paper products all the time. We're probably all sitting at a desk or a chair that's at least partially made of wood. Okay, and then the other side of the coin that we're looking at today is how we use forests and trees for carbon storage or carbon sequestration. So really quickly, this is the forest carbon cycle. Trees take in, store, and release carbon naturally, but the more carbon that's stored in trees, the less carbon that there is out in the atmosphere contributing to climate change. So that's why trees are considered such an important tool in the fight against climate change. So knowing that we use trees a lot for wood and paper products, but trees are also really useful to us for carbon sequestration, what we're gonna get into explaining what we're actually going outside and doing today. So today you're gonna go outside, choose a tree, and measure its volume to figure out what wood and paper products it could be made into, and then measure the amount of carbon that your tree stores. So we thought we would just firstly kind of walk you guys through exactly how this is gonna look. And to do that, I am going to pass you over to Julie.
Awesome. Thank you, Mila. And yeah, thanks for kind of warming us up to this whole idea of citizen science. And it's great to be here with you all. I've had a chance to tune into a little bit of the other workshops, and it's been really inspiring and just really heartwarming and encouraging just to see so many of you here on a Friday afternoon, learning what you can learn about just bringing what you care about and putting it into action. And so we hope that we can contribute to that as well. So I just stuck in the chat a file. This is kind of the worksheet that you can work off of for this next little section. So feel free to open it up in another tab if you want, and just follow along as I kind of run you through some tips and tricks on doing these measurements like Mila mentioned. And so the first one that we're going to start with is how we measure diameter of a tree. And so this is kind of where your tools are going to come in. And so the first thing that you're going to need is your string, as well as a ruler. So it can be really basic. I've just got some twine here. I actually realized I can't find a ruler, so I'm using a measuring tape. But basically what you will do here is you will find a tree, any tree, and this is where the up close and personal part comes in, like Mila mentioned, and you'll just wrap your string around the tree and you'll hold it tight, and then you'll just make sure that you have it marked off on the end where you want to then put it in front of a ruler or a measuring tape and measure the length of it. And then after that, we have to do a little bit of math, because that is actually giving us the circumference and not the diameter, which is what we want. So like Mila's got on the slides here, here are some formulas that you're probably familiar with. And we have to rearrange our circumference formula to then find the diameter. So we can take the circumference that you took and then divide it by pi, and that will give us our diameter. so we can keep moving along. And so that was really quick for the diameter. So that's measurement number 1. And these measurements kind of go in sequence for a reason. So that'll be your first one. And then the one after that is the height. And so we realize that we all may have climbed a tree or two in our day, but that's not what we're going to do here to figure out the height. There's actually some very interesting tools that foresters use, but they are also very costly. So the good news is that you can do this with, again, just basic things that you have at home. So if you have a sibling or a family member at home that you can snag for a few minutes, that's great. But if you don't, no frets, you can actually just take a stick or a meter stick. I went ahead and I actually took the broom end off my broom, and this is perfect because it actually lines up really well, kind of at my chest height. So you want something that's roughly a meter or so tall. And then what you're going to do is you are going to measure the height of whatever stick it is. So you just want to have that written down somewhere. And then after that, what you're going to do is you are going to hold it next to your tree, and then you are going to step away from it as far as you can. And then you're going to notice, you're going to try to kind of pinch it with your hands from a distance, because then what you're going to do from there is you are going to count the number of times that stick or person fits inside that tree, from the bottom of the tree to the top of the tree. So I think we've got a little bit of a visual going on. Yeah, Mila's been following along here. So you can see that if we count, in this instance, we've got a person who's 1.5 meters. They fit 4.5 times into the height of the tree. We can multiply those two together, and then we wind up with a measurement of our height. If none of those things are available to you, there are also apps that you can download that use augmented and virtual reality to help you. So I think there's a few apps listed on your worksheet too. Okay, so then we have our two kind of base calculations, which can help us determine our volume, or essentially the amount of wood that is in that tree that can be used for those products like Mila mentioned. And so this table, there's two tables, and quite simply it shows measurements for coniferous trees and measurements for deciduous trees. And so all you'll do here is you'll find the range that most closely matches your tree height and your tree diameter. You will find where they match up, and then bada boom, that is your volume. So that's some math that you don't have to do. This table calculates it for you, which is super awesome. I wish math was like that all the time. And so that will then help you determine a couple other things about what you can do. So Mila's got this video here queued up, and I'm just going to share the link with you guys for it. So if you need some extra guidance.
And diameter of trees to figure out the volume. And the volume of wood can be.
I think we're just gonna
value or how much money that.
If you just want to drop the link to the video in, if people need more guidance, they can just follow along the video.
Julie, you're muted.
Sorry, guys.
And by using that tool, you just
I think
wrap around the tree.
it's playing on my end. I'm sorry, I was getting really confused about where the sound was coming from. Sorry about that. But yeah, so there's the YouTube link. You can refer back to this afterwards if you need to, if you want a refresher on anything. And then that will all help you look at different types of products that you can make with your tree. So whether that's those 4 pictures are some common forestry products. So you can find, and if you can identify the species too, that's awesome. So you can see we have a little table in that worksheet that kind of helps you figure out the types of products that can be made from your tree. As well, we also have another table on that worksheet as well that shows you the different types of things you can make with different products, and then how much wood you might need as well. So you can play around with that a little bit. And then that kind of covers it for those particular measurements and kind of on the forestry side. So we're kind of having you think both like a forester and as a citizen science, because like Mila said, we like to kind of round out the perspectives here. And so we're also going to give you a chance to measure the amount of carbon inside your tree. And so for this one, instead of using the diameter, you're actually going to need the circumference measurement. So what you had at the beginning, as well as your height. And then we also have this table that will show you, as you match it up, the mass of carbon dioxide that can be stored within that tree. And then we have that other table on the bottom corner where we've just kind of looked up the general amount of emissions from various day-to-day activities like running a dishwasher or driving a car, things like that. And then you can determine, just based on the amount of carbon dioxide that your tree can sequester, how many emissions could be offset from one of these activities by using that tree to store that carbon. So I know that was kind of a blitz run through, and the worksheet is laid out in a way that has some of these explanations as well. But Mila and I will definitely stick around if you have any questions about any of the worksheets. It's about 2:22 right now, but I think we'll give you a little bit more time than just till 2:45. So why don't we give you about half an hour? Why don't we meet back here at 2:55? Does that sound good? That's 23 minutes or 33 minutes.
That sounds great.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so feel free if you have any questions offhand, just you can use the chat or you can just unmute yourself and ask us. Otherwise, go outside, go enjoy the beautiful weather. Hopefully it's beautiful wherever you are. And we'll meet back here and we'll share what we found. All right, it's 2:55. I have no sense of who's back and who's not, and I have no concept if that was enough time or too much or not enough. So if you are back, if you could either just raise your hand, use one of those reaction things, or say hey in the chat, or wave or something like that. That would be super great. Just so I know who's here and who we're still waiting for. Oh, awesome. Awesome. Getting some folks back. So that's good. Great. How was it? How was going outside? Did you have a nice time outside? I snuck outside to measure the tree in my backyard, but it was really, really small.
The tree I measured was huge. And yeah, it was like 5.5 of my fences.
Oh, wow. Holy smokes.
Yeah. Anybody else want to share how big their tree is?
Yeah, let's do a little bit of a share and show and tell. Love to hear.
Or just open up that Mentimeter and drop in the results of your tree, and we're going to kind of compare how amazing our trees are at sequestering carbon.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Are we gonna take a look at that together, Mallory?
Yeah, I'll pull it up on my screen here. Give me a second. If anybody wants to share about their experience, just put your hands up and we can unmute you. And if you're just returning, just like show a little reaction. I want everyone to do like a thumbs up or a heart or a confetti drop if you are back in the chat.
Right on.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed getting outside. I know you've been behind the screen for this awesome conference, and you're all troopers and champs for still going so strong. So I hope that was a bit of a nice break.
So there, I just shared the screen. No. So the link to that Mentimeter is just in the chat if you want to start filling it out, if you've returned to the room.
Great. Yeah, and I think we should just keep posting the link as more people come back.
Sure, I'll let you do that.
Happens.
Good idea.
Okay, well, why don't you move back to the end of your presentation, and we can kind of take a look at that Mentimeter as more people rejoin. Just fill out your tree volume in there, and then how much carbon your tree captures, because it's pretty amazing.
That sounds perfect. Yeah, so we'll give you all a bit of time to input your results, because that takes a little bit of doing. But in the meantime, I thought, and then we'll look at it. We'll look at it more closely. And Skylar, we're using centimeters. But I thought in the meantime, I would just try to kind of explain and see and help you kind of reflect a little bit on this experience that you've had throughout this conference, and how it relates back to this idea of citizen science, and how it can help you engage others and yourselves in the type of action projects and stewardship initiatives that you're so passionate about, and what's brought you here. So I'm just going to start changing my screen and sharing it, and just thought I would kind of show you what sorts of things are possible with these types of measurements that you've just done. And then Mallory, maybe I'll get you to just interrupt me once there's enough results in the Mentimeter, and we can just pause from whatever I'm doing here to take a look at those. But so we took measurements, and I just want to make sure, yeah, okay, good. You can see my screen. So we took measurements, and we got the diameter, we got the volume, we measured the amount of carbon. I just wanted to show you how this kind of manifests itself in in the working world, in addition to what we talked about before. And I thought this would be of note for you all, because we've talked about this idea of curiosity and just staying curious, and how this translates into a career. And so in municipalities throughout the province, forestry is a consideration, and forest management, not only within the forestry companies, but within urban municipalities as well. And so these measurements that you took translate into important pieces of information that urban foresters need to know. And I thought that might be a bit more relatable to some of us. So I just thought I'd show you, there's a couple maps from both the city of Edmonton and the city of Calgary where this type of data is collected, and you can view it as the public online. And so not only do we have things like height and diameter and things like that, but because the urban municipalities are also actually kind of actively reforesting our cities, we've of course had to kind of plan around them. They're valued with a monetary value as well. And so I was thinking about this because I thought about how trees in an undisturbed forest, I don't know that in a national park we would necessarily put a monetary value on them. And I think as well, just from some of the knowledge we've obtained through our friends in Indigenous communities about this idea of the land being something that we borrow from as opposed to taking away, there's kind of a cool interplay here, I think, with the type of things we can give back. And one of the things I think we can give back is just this effort in getting this information and monitoring these trees. And so both the city of Calgary and the city of Edmonton have programs, and you can report trees that you notice may need some love or some help, and these urban forest programs will take a look at them. But I wanted to point these out as well, because the very thing that you just did is something that you could do as an urban forester. But let's go back to citizen science. So what you just did by collecting this tree data is something that you can participate in a wide range. So with Paulette, we talked about staying curious, and Mr. Rob talked about things that we care about, and really just kind of reflecting on what it is and what drives us. So if you are passionate about wildlife biodiversity, or plants, or soils, or worms, or anything like that, there's definitely places and spaces to develop this type of work to gather more information. And so I said gather like a Southern drawl, but I thought I would just show you something that happened recently. And some of you may be familiar with this, but there is an app, iNaturalist, which is a worldwide database of biodiversity collections. And it's something that Canada has kind of its own branch of as well. But just a couple weeks ago, the iNaturalist as well as the city of Calgary kind of teamed up to invoke this City Nature Challenge, which was kind of just a rapid fire blitz. Bio blitz is a pretty common term for it, to collect information about different animals and plants species. And so using the iNaturalist app, it really just involves taking a photo, identifying it if you can, but if you can't, no frets, because the app can give you suggestions, and there's designated identifiers. And that could also be you in time. So then the kind of the deliverables of this wind up being a map, and then photos that are that have the names of the species, where they're found, as well as just kind of this amount of observations, over 6,000. And something cool about iNaturalist as well is that these observations are then vetted, so they can actually be what we call research grade. So they can actually contribute to scientific understanding that researchers can work with. So that's something that if you're really intrigued about that, this is a great way to start kind of building up that skill set and getting into it. So this is just one of many, many, many examples. And to kind of prove that, this is just a smattering of other citizen science offerings that different organizations have throughout the province, as well as throughout the country and beyond. So I just thought I would highlight a few of them for you, and hopefully give you some inspiration as well, because there's no one saying that you can't start a citizen science project on your own. That's 100% something that you could do if there's something that you want to learn more about, something you're curious about, something you want the community to be engaged in. And I'll give you a couple tips about how you might go about doing that as well. And then I'm just looking here. After that, we'll kind of go to the Mentimeter and see what all of these results were that you did. So a few that I wanted to point out are some of these up in the corner here. Nature Alberta has kind of this suite of citizen science programs. One's called Plant Watch, Bat Watch, Ice Watch, Worm Watch. And so basically with Plant Watch, you're kind of monitoring growth stages of plants, and you're contributing data from a specific plant throughout the springtime when it buds and things like that, to just kind of track the rates of growth. Ice Watch, kind of same idea. You're looking for snow melt to help kind of give us some climatic information. Another one I wanted to point out was this Nature Links in the bottom corner. ABMI is the Alberta Biodiversity Monitoring Institute. And so they have developed an app and a platform similar to an iNaturalist in the sense that you're collecting this biodiversity data, but it's Alberta specific, so it's more localized and specialized. And I will say too that the Alberta Biodiversity Monitoring Institute hires many summer students, or it did. I'm not sure how things are going nowadays, but look out for that on the future. If you want to do these counts as a job, that's something that you could do as a university student. And then this citizen science portal is a website from the Government of Canada, and it has just a database of all of these different projects throughout the country, and they extend beyond just biodiversity and environment related. They extend it to things like flu count, other human health type projects. So this concept of citizen science extends well beyond this environmental sphere, though it has a very, very, very important role in it. And then the last one that I wanted to point out as a tool that you might use to develop your own citizen science projects is ArcGIS. And so it's a mapping tool that also has a survey tool called Survey 123. And I'm not going to go through this now, but I'm just going to give you a little teaser of what you can do with ArcGIS Online to develop your own citizen science project. So I'm going to put a link to this project called the Tree Roots Movement in the chat. And it's a project centered around helping influence policymakers in your local community on the front of planting more trees. If that's something you think you need in your community, this project helps you collect that data to be able to do so. And so I thought I would just let you check it out for yourselves, because you can just get a sense of the what you can do to make a difference and make that change, and help engage others in your community in this act of citizen science. So there's so much for you to explore, and if you want to know more about any of these specific platforms, we can definitely put you in touch with people who have a bit more direct involvement with them. But if you're interested in developing your own, please reach out to us, because we would love to be able to help you implement something. And I'm going to just check in with Mallory and see how things are going on the Mentimeter front.
Yeah, there's a couple results we can share quickly. Just we are running a bit behind, so we're going to wrap the session up pretty quickly. So if you just stop your screen sharing, I'll share my screen for a second, and then we'll wrap up the session.
Sounds great.
Okay. What is the volume of your tree? That's not showing up. Hide. Oh, there we go. Some big trees, some little trees. How much does your tree sequester? Maybe some people didn't get to that point, so maybe there wasn't enough time.
Yeah.
Does it sequester enough some of them sequestered enough to drive a car, run a dishwasher, watch Netflix for an hour, and play an Xbox for an hour. So that was a really cool exercise. It was cool to correlate everything.
Awesome. Well, I hope you all had fun, and I hope you just got a little bit of a taste of what being a citizen scientist is all about. And I hope that it gives you some inspiration going forward.
Thank you so much for joining us, Julie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having Mila and I. We really enjoyed it, and just wish you all the best. And yeah, I think you're all awesome for being here and wanting to do more. So keep up the good work.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you, Julie and Mila. I might as well say that too. I'm very excited. I'm going to start looking at some citizen science opportunities now.